Coming up on this episode of Real Talk Rentals, we're going to give you the do's and don'ts of property management. Welcome to Real Talk Rentals, a podcast brought to you by OnQ Property Management. We're here to give you all the tips and tricks of owning a rental property. I'm your host, Ben, and with me, as always, is Mr. Eric Dixon, go-to property management expert, which is a good thing because today we're going to do a list. We're going to do some do's and don'ts of property management. So it's almost like a lightning round, I guess. We're just going to throw stuff out there, see what sticks. So let's jump right into it. Eric, let's start with the do's. Give me your top 10 must do or know for a person owning a rental property. Okay.
Full disclosure, Ben gave me a heads up on this one. So this is in no particular order.
Right.
But I feel like these are kind of the top things to consider and the top do's here if you're going to think about investing in a rental, you own a rental, and what to consider, managing that rental. So my number one, and it is in no order, but if it was to be in order, this I bumped to the top of the list. It's knowing your why. And it kind of sounds like we're a self-help podcast or something, but it's know your why of owning this property, right? Okay. Or why should I buy one? You need to understand owning rentals or investing in rentals is not a get rich quick scheme. It's not gonna happen overnight. In fact, it happens so slowly that year to year, as you're doing renewals or looking at your Zestimate go up and down all summer or whatever, you wonder, why am I doing this?
Right.
so I would say understand that why. For me, I was telling you yesterday, my why of owning rentals, like I had to replace a roof this summer, an AC this summer. We had an insurance claim this summer on another property. And I'm sitting there going like, this is a net negative year as far as capital improvements into our portfolio of rentals for my wife and I. So why are we doing it? And you look at the tax benefits, you look at the, servicing all the debt on the properties and all this stuff. And you realize, okay, why am I doing this? The 3, the 5, the 10, the 20-year plan is the why. Eventually they're going to be paid off. And eventually if rates go down, you could refinance or, whatever those things are. So understanding your why is the number one, because that will help you with the future don'ts that we'll go over. And even some of the do's, you'll be able to make those decisions more clearly.
Yeah. I think it's important to note too, and we talked about this yesterday, but the why sometimes for some people is they have to, they're moving and they can't sell. The market's taking a downturn. They can't sell their property. So they're stuck being a landlord. And that's important to know when you're in it.
Yeah. And so you're like, hey, why am I owning this? Oh yeah. Because if I don't rent it out right now, then I'm going to have to service this debt without income, or I'm going to take a huge loss on the sale or whatever, and some of the times the why is not a positive thing. It's just reality smacks you in the face and you go, why am I doing this? Oh yeah. Cause I don't want this worse scenario.
Right.
So yeah, that would be number one. Now these others, not in any order, treat it as an investment. It's not an emotional thing. It needs to be an investment. And when this is the hardest is when we sign on clients to use our service and we're managing now their former primary residence is now their rental. And they're sitting there going, no, this is our home. It's not an investment property. This is my home. We raised our family here. I got married here. I brought my pets home here. And then we call them about, business. We're talking about lease renewals, renting it, market rate, the tenant's not treating it like their home.
Right. Or it's not the tenant they pictured in that home.
Yeah. And again, you've mentioned it a lot. A lot of these things are non-intentional, unintentional, but they don't treat it like an investment and they're treating it like their old house. And it's like, nope, the gear needs to go in your head and shift to it's an investment, not an emotional purchase. So I'd say that's one of them. Another one is know your costs. So all the financial sides. So know what are your hard costs. So your mortgage payment, maybe your property taxes, your insurance, your HOA, your management fees. What are your hard costs?
Right.
And then what are some of the soft costs, meaning the things you can control? So vacancy being one of the biggest costs, utilities while it's vacant, your costs to renovate it. You need to know the numbers. And a lot of us that are real estate investors, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm more of a shoot from the hip type.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yes, I know we'll make it up on the back end. Let's just go for it.
Right.
Some people are way on the numbers, but you've got to, even somebody like me, you got to know your numbers.
Yeah. You don't want to be shocked when something comes in and you're like, wait, what are all these minuses on the ledger?
Yeah. And you need to know even before you're investing, like, hey, hypothetically, next summer when I have to renovate this thing, what's that going to cost?
Right.
You need to at least get some sort of bid, even if it's verbal from a contractor, like, oh yeah, that's going to cost you $20,000.
Yeah.
You're like, holy smokes, like I'm not going to have that kind of money next summer. So, know your costs, have a budget for it, understand that the numbers, if you know them up front, it's going to speak volumes in the future. I'd say the next one is have a great team around you. So think in your head, if you're self-managing it, you still need a team. You still need a team of people to support you if issues come up, whether that's an attorney for evictions, whether that's a property manager you team up with, contractors, handymen, a CPA to do your taxes and get all the benefits you can. You need a team around you. It could be that the best team around you is your spouse. And you're like, hey, we are the team for most of this. We don't have a lot of, fluff here to hire people. We're going to have to do a lot of it ourselves or, whatever that is. So just have a team around you. I listed here, I think I mentioned all of them: property management company, contractor, attorney, CPA, just name all those and have that spelled out. So when issues do come up and there is a flood at 2 a.m. on Sunday on the weekend, that you're not then going to Google. You're like, no, I have a plumber, I have a contractor, if it's a property management company, I can tell you they have a team, ready to go for you. So
marry a certified CPA is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be super efficient with this, when you're courting your spouse or your to-be spouse, you're engaged, just make sure that they check some of those boxes.
Yeah.
So know your why, treat it as an investment, know your costs, have a team. Those are 4. 5, have a general understanding of the tenant landlord laws in your area. So in Arizona, we'll speak from, there's the Tenant Landlord Act, right? And you do not need to memorize it. You don't need to study it, but read it at least once.
Yeah. Be aware,
and have an understanding of, the basic rights of a tenant. And it doesn't matter where you are in any state, no matter how strict or not strict the laws are, tenants have rights and they should, and we need to understand what those rights are, and not only those rights and then draw a line, but understand, the tenant's rights, the landlord's rights, and that gray area in the middle where you're going to have to flex and bend and be understanding.
Right.
And that kind of bleeds into a next bullet point we made here of knowing about or have knowledge of fair housing. So on the federal level and the state level and the city level, I've mentioned it in previous episodes, the city of Mesa, the city of Tucson, the town of Gilbert, they have different fair housing laws within their town or city. Yeah. Then you have the state and then you have the federal. And what applies to you, what doesn't apply to you. And if you self-manage, you're held to a different standard than if you hire a third-party management company. They are held to a different standard. Yeah. If your management company requires a licensed broker, they're held to a higher standard than somebody who is not, does not have a license and so forth.
I think this is important too, because it's surprising how much is in there. You think don't discriminate based on race, or think all the boxes to check, and it's surprising the wording of it and how careful you need to be and make sure that you're following that to the letter of the law.
And we'll get to that on the don'ts, but it's like, if you know fair housing, then you're automatically not going to do some of the things we're going to say don't do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, hey, don't discriminate based off this and this, or don't, just because in your head you mentioned, maybe this quote ideal family didn't move into your rental, and it's like, hey, none of that matters. The fair housing laws, spell that out. And once you've been through a cycle or two of tenancies and you've leased the property and you've moved them out, you do get to the point where you're like, do you know what? I don't care about that stuff anymore.
Right.
The kids or the pets or I care about the investment and that they're taking care of the property, that it's appreciating, that I'm getting the right tax advice, and I'm using a property management company I know and trust, and that type of stuff kind of just falls into place. I would say the next one, this is super important. And do you know what? If you're going to number them, this may be number one. Be open and flexible to adapting to the market. And we're experiencing that right now.
Big time.
Where the market is different than it was a month ago. It's different than it was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and a year ago. And that sounds cliche, but it really is. When interest rates were super low, the rental market was different. Interest rates are high, the rental market is directly affected.
Yeah.
Because investors are making decisions differently. Home buyers that would be home buyers are now not buying, they're renting. People that were going to sell, they can't sell for as much as they were, so they're deciding to rent.
Right.
And so, funny enough, the sales market is saturated, but also the rental market's saturated. And so you need to be open and flexible to adapt in real time. It's not, let's just wait 30 days and see. It's like, no, you need to adjust today.
Yeah.
No less than 30 minutes ago. So I actually just came over here from an appointment. And my property manager works for us. He's amazing. Noah, he emails me and says, hey, one of your tenants is wondering if they can end their lease early. They need to move. They can't renew at the end of January. They'd like to move at the end of December. And I'm sitting there going, man, I could hold them to the lease, but ask them why they're moving. Because if they want to move because rents are going up, like I'm willing to keep rent the same. In fact, let's see what they say. I would even lower the rent to help them stay. So he asked him, and I said, hey, do you know what? Offer them a renewal for $50 less a month, see if they'll stay. He says, oh man, that'd be great. Come to find out, it's not to do with finances, but they said, hey, I'm losing my roommate, or I'm losing this, and this. The rent's going to have to be $400 a month less in rent. And I was like, I can't do 400, but I could have done 50 or 100 all day. I would have done.
Right.
Because I understand the vacancy costs me a lot. Leasing and marketing fees and utilities and that sort of, and the liability of owning a vacant property. And so anyway, I was open and flexible right away, because I'm like, dude, I can't have this place vacant during Christmas or during, the first of the year when it's slow. So, it's happening right now. I'm going to have a vacancy here in a month that I wasn't planning on. So I'm going to have to look at, okay, I need to be open and flexible to that market.
We're seeing a lot of now too, people that, somebody else on the street 6 months ago rented out the same floor plan for, $3,000. And it's like, well, that was 6 months ago.
Yeah, now it's 26.
Yeah.
Or 28, yeah.
Yeah, it's drastically changed. And it is a struggle where people aren't adapting fast enough. And we're constantly encouraging them, like, you got to move where the market is, or it's going to sit.
And landlords and sellers and owners of real estate are realizing it. I don't know how to emphasize enough that you can't wait a month to see what happens and then adjust.
Right.
You need to adjust today, and you might have to adjust again next week and again next week. And you don't need to do huge adjustments. Just be flexible and open. Trust your property manager, trust your team, your property manager, trust your contractors just to get stuff done, your attorneys and so forth. Next on the list here, be prepared for the unexpected. So, it almost again sounds like this is just me this year, right? Just expect the unexpected is the repairs. Tenant loses their job. Tenant gives notice early. Like, hey, the one I just mentioned, the lease ends in January. They're moving at the end of December, whether I want to work with them or not. They're like, hey, I'm moving. So you either can work with me and let me end a month early, and that way we can show it and market it early, or I'm just going to turn in keys a month early and say, hey, come after me. So we're going to work with them and figure out a buyout or, negotiate that out. But you need to not only be prepared for the unexpected, but expect the unexpected.
Right. We've said this several times now, but you had to buy a roof this year.
Yeah.
You had to buy an AC unit this year, things that you're not prepared for, but you can't just have a rental property that doesn't have a functioning roof.
Yeah. And I've got a property with a couple partners, and there was a repair came through, and the HVAC technician's like, hey, look, I could fix it for X, or I could replace it for 3 times that. And I'm sitting there, we're on a group text, and we're like, what do you guys think? Should we just replace it? Like, dude, let's just replace it. And I'm like, dude, we were not planning on replacing this. We just bought this place. It's only 7-8 years old, but it's just a fluke thing. And, it's just an unexpected repair.
Yeah.
It hurts less when you split it 3 ways, but but it also is like, dude, that was not expected, no matter what, no matter how you dice it, so prepare for the unexpected, expect the unexpected. Next, top 10 things to do. Use a licensed, bonded, insured contractor for repairs.
Yeah.
So that's easy from our side of the table. It's like, hey, Mr. Property Owner, Mrs. Property Owner, please use a licensed, bonded, insured contractor. We require it, when we're managing your property. So that's easy. But I'm telling you, when you self-manage, it is so easy to use your guy or your gal to do your handyman repairs. Use your uncle to save you $100.
Yeah.
I was talking to a property manager today. I have a Marco Polo group with a couple brokers, and he's like, "Oh, I had one of the properties I manage catch on fire last night, and I think it's because of a contractor or a handyman that did something that caught it on fire during a repair."
Yeah,
and I'm just like, dude, I hope they were licensed, bonded, and insured, because that $200 you saved, may get you a denial on your insurance claim.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come after you for your general liability because you didn't hire a licensed, bonded, insured contractor. So that one's super, super important, super relevant even to a conversation I had today. And then the last, and this is more of a, in the top 10, make sure you have an annual review of your investment. It doesn't have to be formal, but at least annually. A lot of times it comes at your lease renewal time because you're talking about rent, you're talking about maintenance, you're talking to your property manager anyway. Is review things. When should we up the rent next? Should I refinance this property? Check rates and stuff out. Should I consider, hey, is this one going well? Should I buy another one? Hopefully you're not investing in rentals so that every year you're determining, should I sell this? I hope that everyone listening gets into this and you want to buy a rental or convert your primary residence to a rental to keep it forever.
Right.
Like, the idea is you're going to keep this thing long term, and that if you are going to sell, you're going to 1031 exchange it into another one or exchange it into two. So hopefully your annual review doesn't turn into, I want to sell this thing.
Right.
Because most people I sell their properties for, they're like, man, I shouldn't have sold. They're 5 years down the line. They're looking at real estate values just keep going up and up and up. And they're like, man, I should have, for what I was into that thing, I should have kept it.
If you're doing the annual review too, you're looking at the whole picture instead of just, if you talk to you the day after you got a bill to replace a roof, you're probably like, get rid of this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you got to look at the big picture and be like, yes, that was, one down in a year of, ups.
Yep.
So,
and one of the things I keep, it's kind of a spreadsheet that I got from a friend, but it's called a net worth spreadsheet. So at the end of every month, I'll put in, how much did my tenants pay off the mortgage? Like, so what's my mortgage balance?
Right.
And then at the end of the year, you can look at it and go, oh man, I didn't make any money as far as repairs, as cash flow. Oh, but my tenant paid off $8,000 of principal balance on my loan this year. Like, oh man, there's the silver lining in keeping this thing.
Yeah.
And then when you do your taxes, you're like, oh, the depreciation or the writing off the repairs or the property management fees or, whatever it is. And a lot of times the silver lining of owning it isn't until you take a step back and realize, I had to replace the roof. Oh, but do you know what? The tenant paid off $10,000 of principal this year, or I get to write off that interest or that expense on my taxes, or, that sort of thing. So make sure that you are doing that at least annually. It doesn't need to be formal with your property manager. A lot of times that conversation is going to be with your CPA or your spouse, or it's going to be, you just sit back and you read through the statements and you read through your mortgage statements, your property taxes, your HOA fees, and you just look at all of it and say, okay, what am I doing? Understand my why, going back to that. And then it kind of rebalances you and reboots you to what you're going to do next year.
Right. All right. I think that was 10, right?
Yeah, that's 10. So
okay.
Not in any order.
Not in any order. All important. Well, then let's move to the don'ts.
Okay.
Top 10 things a person should never do or know not to do when owning a rental property.
Number 1, don't hire this company. No, I'm just kidding. Don't hire our competitor.
Yeah.
No. Okay. We'll just jump in here. And again, we prepared this a little bit, but
no particular order.
Yeah, no particular order. Number 1 being, don't assume your property and your taste is the best. And you know what? I put that one and I put in parentheses, you had an example about a jungle house or something.
Oh, right. Yeah. Matt was telling us that the entire house was painted safari themed.
Safari themed. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like gorillas in the living room and like tigers in the kitchen. It's like, you might think that's cool, but don't assume that everyone else does.
Oh yeah. No. And it's just the classic, like my house is the best.
Yeah.
It's like, I put those floors in myself. Like these are beautiful. It was 10 years ago and it's way out of date now. And it's, not trendy anymore, but
yeah,
so you just have to realize that your property and your taste may not be what is in, it may not be what's the best. And don't be offended when your property manager or your rental expert comes in and says, hey, we need to repaint this whole house.
Yeah.
That you just painted 3 years ago, green and blue and black. We need to paint it a white or a neutral color. The next one, don't let your property sit vacant too long. Remember, that's your number one expense.
We hit that all the time.
All the time. And if you're listening to this, you're like, dude, you say that every week, but it totally is. I look at that example of, I've got a vacancy coming up and I'm going to lose more in vacancy than we will by lowering the rent to $100. So
yeah.
It's like, vacancy costs the most. So do not let it sit too long. If it's sitting for more than 2 weeks, be proactive and call, lower the price yourself or call your property manager, make sure they're lowering that price.
Yeah. And I learned last episode, I had no idea, but when we were talking about insurance, that if it sits vacant for it's like 30 days or whatever, then your insurance won't cover if somebody comes in and vandalizes it.
Yeah. You're opening up yourself to liability there anyway.
Yeah.
There's multiple reasons. Next, do not give your tenants your phone number.
Yeah. Your personal cell phone.
Yeah, your personal cell phone number. So this is tough to do if you're self-managing, right? I mean, that's part of the gig, right? They have to know how to get a hold of you. But even then, like maybe get a Google Voice number for your rentals, or I mean, you really should just hire us or hire another management company in your area and create a buffer between you and the tenant. And that is not so that the tenant doesn't get great service. It's actually the opposite. And they're going to be able to get better service, 24-hour service and so forth if they have somebody else to reach out to.
Yeah.
The next one kind of piggybacks off of the use a licensed bonded insured contractor. Do not hire the Craigslist Wonder or your best friend to save a little bit of money on maintenance.
Yeah.
And so we're mentioning that on the do and the don't because it is double important. We have countless stories. I mean, it's not even funny. Some people, what they'll do to save $1 and then they'll quickly regret it.
Craigslist is just probably a bad idea for just about everything.
Yeah. Don't.
There's other avenues.
There's other avenues, especially for service companies or contractors. The next one, don't guess, hire an expert. So this is almost kind of with the fair housing stuff you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like don't pretend like you're the expert and say, oh, do you know what? This is my interpretation of it. I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah.
An example would be we've had self-managers that hire us later on that are like, that would deny ESA animals, emotional support animals. So deny them as pet. They're like, oh yeah, no pets. I don't care if it's ESA or not. And it's like, oh dude, don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Yeah. Or even we talked about last episode, I keep going back to the insurance because I learned way more about insurance than I've ever have in my life. But that, I would have never guessed to switch my insurance if I'm moving out of a property and someone else is moving in. But an expert's going to be like, hey, you got to switch that or else you're committing insurance fraud inadvertently.
Yeah. And there's kind of when you hire a property manager, they should give you a couple guidelines. It's like, here's a minimum limit. You need to switch your insurance. You need to register it with the county. You got to register with the city sales tax license for rental tax, all these different things that you would not know if you did it yourself. So you need to lean on an expert there. So don't guess, hire an expert. Next one, don't cut corners on costs. That's kind of a general statement, but it's an umbrella on all things, not just maintenance. It could be on property management. The cheapest is not necessarily the best.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for. Don't cut corners on costs. It has to do with upgrades. This even has to be on purchase price on a property.
Right.
It's like, just because it's the cheapest house available doesn't mean it's the best rental. And inverse to that, because it's expensive doesn't mean it's going to be the best rental either.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to think here what I had something in my head, but I'll move on. Let's see. Don't discount your time. So how much is your time worth? We've mentioned that a dozen times too.
Yeah.
That don't discount your time. You've got to figure out, like, I'm going to spend X amount a week or X amount of hours a week or a year managing this myself. How much time and money am I really saving? If I am saving money, how much time is it taking me? Divide that by how much it would cost to hire somebody, and you determine, is my time worth that?
Yeah.
And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, people are like, oh my gosh, it's that affordable to have a property management company, and I can deduct those fees on my taxes. Sign me up.
And when they find out they would be essentially getting less than minimum wage for what they're doing, they're like, oh, wait a sec. I wouldn't do all this for $5 an hour. And it's well, you are currently.
Exactly. Spend that time with your family, or spend that time learning a new trade or advancing your career so you can buy more rentals.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of one of those things. You just got to commit to do it. Next is dispositions. Do not overcharge. Do not flirt with the line. Make sure that those are absolutely correct and be fair.
Yeah.
Dispositions, the security deposit disposition, where you're accounting for that security deposit at the end of the lease. Most self-managers that end up hiring us have botched that big time. We're taking over a fourplex right now from a self-manager to a professional manager, our firm now. And the owner called the sales guy and said, hey, I had a tenant move out 3 weeks ago. Can you just do the security deposit disposition? We're like, oh yeah, when did they move out? Oh, like 3.5 weeks ago. It was like, we looked at the calendar. We're like, oh, that's more than 14 business days ago. You're in breach.
Yeah.
And we kind of counseled her and just said, hey, do you know what? Just return the whole deposit. You are going to nickel and dime here and there for a couple $100, but you're going to lose that anyway if you don't just give her the money back.
Right.
So don't mess with it. There's big penalties and it's not worth it. Okay, a couple more here. I guess they're not numbered, but the second to last one, right?
Yeah.
Don't be too judgmental. And that sounds hilarious, but we were talking yesterday, and that's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Don't judge them. Some of your perfect tenant in your mind may or may not be married. They may or may not have kids or pets, or, have this perfect rental history, but you're going to learn over time, none of that matters. Not only are they protected by the fair housing laws and so forth, that's a given, but you just want somebody that's there. They're paying rent on time. They're taking care of your property. That's it.
Yeah. You don't want to assume, especially if you have a property management company that's doing a vetted application process, if they bring it to you, they're bringing it to you because this is it, move in. Don't nitpick and judge. Like, I really wanted an 817 credit score and this guy's only got a 750. And it's like, okay.
That's actually how this came to be. Ben and I were Googling it yesterday. Like, what's the average credit score in Maricopa County, Pinal County? What's considered good? What's considered bad? And then we looked and we're like, what's happening is our clients, the property owners are Googling it and they're going, that's a bad credit score because Google told me. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, this is a good applicant.
Yeah.
And just because they had a medical bill or, something come up, like, this is a great applicant.
There's a million things that could lower your credit score and take forever to get back. And they could have had, 10 years of great rental history since then.
Yeah. And it really is. Some of our clients, again, they're like, well, I have an 800 credit score. I can't accept X. Yeah. And I'm like, look, man, they're in a different spot. Yeah. Just like you were, before when you started out. So don't be judgmental. That's kind of an overlaying, again, an umbrella statement, but the tenant situation is their situation. And you got to realize they're going to rent from somebody. And if they check all the boxes, we have to accept them anyway. So,
yeah.
And the last one, I love it. This is the best. I think Ben came up with this one, but don't be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. So, in my world, as the property management side of things, that guy is like the Karen or the Chad, they call it. I guess the Karen is the woman, the Chad, the guy that just constantly complains, constantly just points the finger, constantly stomps in the office. And it's like, dude, we're more than willing to work with everybody.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. Don't be the one that, is making your life miserable. Working with a property manager is a partnership. It's not quite a marriage.
Yeah.
But But it is a partnership. You do have to build trust, and there are going to be issues. And hopefully you build trust. And then when one of the parties, either the owner or the tenant or the property manager, screws up, there's enough trust built where they go, do you know what, Ben?
Yeah.
I get it, man. You forgot to do that. Let's move on. Forgive and forget. Let's move on.
Or we see a lot where it's, oftentimes we're the messenger. We're bringing not the news they want to hear. And it's like, we'll hear these phone calls where somebody just goes off on someone. And it's like, she didn't do anything. She's trying to help you with your investment property and you're laying into this person. It's like, just don't be Karen. Yeah. Just don't be that guy, Yeah.
So don't be that guy, in quotes, is the best. I mean, I would say on the do's, looking at the top one is know your why. Why are you investing? Why do you own a rental? Why are you hiring a manager? Why are you doing this? Yeah. Because if you're miserable doing it, you need to get out of the game, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, and understand maybe you're a better investor in stocks or crypto or whatever, just hoarding cash, gold, whatever it is. But understand your why, I think, is the biggest do. The biggest don't be that guy.
Just don't do it. Yeah.
Just let yourself be open to being educated on how to be the best investor you can be.
Yeah.
You'll be successful. So
awesome. All right. I love it. Love a good list. So that's it for us this time. We will see you guys next time, and be sure to like, and if you can, subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this. It really helps out, and we'll see you guys next time.